And so this is a slide that I took from Jean-Claude Mboli, who recently had a lecture on my YouTube channel on historical comparative linguistics and the comparative method. So I won't go through the comparative method. That lecture was 5 hours long, and so we don't have that kind of time. But I want to give an example here of the kind of example that we would use, to demonstrate in terms of relatedness of languages. And so if we look at, for instance, this left this left table here, and we're comparing the words in English to the words in French. And so the word father is the word pere in French, and then in Latin is what we have in parentheses, pater. The word for foot is ped. You see ped in Latin. Wolf is lup, lupus in Latin. Tooth, dent. Two, du, duo. Three, toi, tre. Horn, corn, hornus. Heart, chor. And then cord, night, nuit. And then noct, as in nocturnal in Latin. And as we can see, through all these different forms here, that where we have matches in these languages. And so I won't get into the science of sound laws, but just to give an example, we can see here where this in English, where there's an initial F, there's a P in French. In English, they drop the TH. In French, they drop the TH and they're just left with the R. So R matches with R, TH is dropped, and F is with P. But the T is still present in Latin. And so we have foot. We see a consistency here. F matches initially with P, and then where T, they have T, it matches with D. And so here, this wolf is the W is a semi-consonant, but we see here the consonant, the L, F, again, just like the F here, P. This consistent T, D, TH, which is usually dropped, and with the dent here. Two, do, T, D, do. Three, which can also match with the T. And so that when they lose the THs in terms of French, they lose it intervocally because it becomes weak inside. But I won't go, saying through all this, but, for those who come back to, you can pause it when this is all recorded, and you can just go through the matches. Look at the consonants. The consonants are more stable. And so with this word list, and we can do hundreds more of this, we can tell that English and French are related. And so we can use these languages to, get more insight into terminologies, with each other. And so this is the same thing that we can do in terms of the Semitic languages. And so by mainstream mainstream linguistics, the Semitic languages belong to a language family called Afroasiatic. And Afroasiatic is allegedly related, has languages such as Hausa, Chadic languages, Omatic, the ancient Egyptian, and things of this nature. And what this means is that sometime in the far distant history, that all of these languages derived from a common parent. And so we're going to find terminology in these languages that are shared. But because they're different dialects of the mother tongue, just like what we see here in English and just what we see here in French, words are going to be pronounced slightly differently. But when we lay them out like this, we can see the relationships, and we can see that these are, in fact, the same words, just being spoken of differently because of the dialects. And so, just like how we did beforehand in terms of the English, Latin, and French, in terms of comparing words, we can do the same thing with far-flung languages in terms of these African languages, such as the Hebrew and the Yoruba. And so we notice some sound correspondences and sound laws. that exists also here. So, for instance, we see for the Hebrew language, halilah, which means far be it. But in Yoruba language, it's rara, not at all. The word roish for head is orisha, head in the Yoruba language. In Hebrew, gaba, all, which is for all basically East Semitic languages, but Hebrew is actually a West Semitic language, so this may have been borrowed into Hebrew. Is bogbo in all in the Yoruba language, and that GB sound is a simultaneous pronunciation. So you say bogbo, you have to say both of those phonemes at the exact same time. And so, like in Arabic, we have wakif, bracelet, but in Yoruba, it's egba, bracelet. In Hebrew, zakar, remember. In Yoruba, it's daruku, to mention, to remember. And it's a metathesis here. And so the R and the K syllables, the ru and the ko in the Yoruba language is kar in the Hebrew language. These, because of the way that the accentuation happens, the phonemes have switched. And we can go all down, these terms here, and we can see that they're a match. But notice that in Hebrew, wherever there's an H sound, it's dropped in the Yoruba language. So halilah, it's just rara. But the R's and L's interchange in language. They're known to morph into each other. Pala, be separated, set apart. It's just pale, set apart, to mark out the dividing line. We can go down to hawa, to be, in Hebrew. It becomes wa, to be, in the Yoruba language. Tawe, ta'awe, I should say, in Hebrew, beauty. Iwa, beauty in Yoruba. Where that H sound is in Hebrew, it's dropped in the Yoruba language. And so there's all kinds of laws and stuff that we can discuss here. But again, you can pause this when you review it in terms of the recording, and you can go by and see that all of this is consistent. And so what this tells us is that fundamentally, when we're trying to understand, words in Hebrew, we can also look to the Yoruba language, for example, to gain insight, because the Yoruba language may have a slight nuance that is not necessarily clear in Hebrew, or vice versa. And so this is what the languages, these comparing these languages helps us to do. And Yoruba and Hebrew share a lot of religious terminologies as well, and it is not due to borrowing. And we got to remember that the ancestors of the Hebrews and the ancestors of the Yorubas used to live in the same speech community in the Sahara. And as a result of the desertification of the Sahara, the ancestors of the Hebrews moved into the Middle East, while the Yoruba, moved further down into what we now call Nigeria. Actually, they moved into what is called Sudan. And from the Sudan, they moved west later on into Nigeria. But that's another discussion.
The Hebrew and the Yoruba are very similar because they're stemming from the same speech community.
Yes, remember, the Yoruba is also one of those languages that comes out of Negro Egyptian. And so the Negro Egyptian, again, there's three branches of Negro Egyptian. The Kikuki branch, the Kikwe branch, and the Kweki branch. And so the Yoruba language comes out of the Kweki branch, the same branch that Bantu comes from, and the same branch that the Middle Egyptian comes from. And so because they all, see, now the Yoruba language and the Hebrew language are related genetically. They don't come from an immediate parent. So when we're talking about the relationship between Hebrew and Yoruba, we're talking about their great-great-grandparents, versus they share the same mother and father.
Okay, thank you.